first ever webinar as Suzy. I thought it was going really well. And then
Mm-hmm.
I went back into the chat after a couple of minutes and were saying, your microphone is broken, you're sharing the wrong screen, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So now I always ask at the beginning, and we're seeing Sarah, Helen, Henry, Adrian, Lewis, Maxine, Evina, Betty, and more folks chiming in saying they can stay in here, which is great. So for me in New York, it's 2:01 p.m. and I wanted to introduce our incredible presenter today, Suzy K. Quinn. So Suzy, what time is it for you? Where are you joining us from today?
Hey, Cameron. So I'm joining you guys from the UK. So we're kind of about an hour from London, and it is 7 o'clock at night here. So if you hear any kids crying, it's their bedtime, basically. But hopefully they won't.
Well, hopefully there's they really are going to enjoy this workshop as well. If they're having trouble if they're having trouble falling asleep, just bring them in and tell them all about
Exactly,
publishing and writing and all that good stuff.
Fascinating. They'll nod off.
Well, it's 2 past the hour for me, whichever hour you're at. So I think we've given those last minute stragglers enough time. So why don't we get started here? So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. Now, I'm going to very quickly go over a few quick logistical things for folks that are just pretty important. So the first thing, I'm going to share my screen for a little bit. You're watching the webinar. You're looking at it on a screen that looks something like this. If you're seeing anything be blurry or it's kind of out of focus or hard to read, just click the gear icon on the video player and then change the quality. So let's change the quality to the highest one, 720p HD. So change the quality to the highest one if you're running into anything be blurry. You can also make it full screen. If you can click the full screen icon to view it really large. And anytime you can ask questions in the chat. And in advance though, I will tell everyone, there's no such thing as a bad question, but the one question I will tell you in advance, there will be a replay. You will get a replay of this automatically. So if you see someone in the chat saying like, hey, is there going to be a replay of this? Will I get a copy? Yes, you will get a replay. Now, with that said, Suzy, take it away.
Thanks so much, Cameron. Okay, right. So I'm going to pull my screen up here in a second and share. Here we go. So hopefully this should magically be working. Cameron, let me know, is this looking good where you are?
Good for me.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's get started. So this is the 3 secrets of best-selling authors with me, Suzy K. Quinn. Hello, everyone. Really, really big welcome to the webinar. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a really informative and useful webinar for anyone looking to make an income from books. So I'm hoping you're going to get a lot out of this bit of time we'll be spending, around about probably 40-50 minutes, something or other. That's what the time we'll be sharing the information, and then there'll be time for some questions at the end. So this will probably change the way you approach books as an income stream, and it would definitely increase your chances of bestseller success. So who is this webinar for? Well, it's for anyone who wants to make an income from books. So this webinar definitely has a fiction focus, but you'll still find useful information if you're looking to package a non-fiction project. And by the way, self-published fiction is one of the fastest growing profit areas on Amazon at the moment. So non-fiction, very profitable too, but fiction is a real growth, real growth area, just for your interest there. It's also for fiction authors who want to create a bestseller. I guess if you've been writing fiction for a while, I did for many years before I hit the bestseller charts, whether it's a hobby or a profession, this webinar will help you turn that writing into best-selling writing. And lastly, it's for anyone who wants to understand the mechanics behind bestsellers. So maybe you're not interested in in doing the writing yourself, but packaging a book for someone else, or just understanding best-selling techniques for your business. So especially, I have to say, if you work in publishing of any kind, you're going to be interested in what comes up in this webinar. Now, before we get started, let me just define the term bestseller. So there's no official definition, but broadly speaking, the publishing industry sees a best-selling title as a book that is sold over 100,000 copies. So why do we want to have a best-selling book? Well, okay, first and foremost, selling over 100,000 copies plus pretty much guarantees you're going to earn a decent amount of money. And take note, if you're a traditionally published author, a best-selling book is pretty much the only guarantee of a living wage. Mid-list books don't pay the bills. Now, writing isn't all about money. Bestsellers do pay the bills. Sorry, I need to add that slide there. It's not all about the money. For a lot of people who write fiction, like myself, your primary focus is often the storytelling, the passion, the love of what you're doing. However, everyone deserves an empowering, financially rewarding career, and especially in the fiction arena, for too long, fiction writers are told that they're not going to make a lot of money out of it. Really, really not true. And I don't believe that authors should have to fit themselves around other jobs and wear themselves out chasing small amounts of money. Anyone who spends time creating a book should reap the rewards of their courage and hard work. And writing books, if you do it the right way, honestly, can be the path to a free, liberated, joyful career. So we've got this nice image here of a cup of coffee and a croissant next to a laptop. This is me most days in a cafe somewhere, and it feels wonderful to choose where I work, when I work, and do what I love every day. It's just so incredibly liberating. And also, if you make your income from books, you can work anywhere in the world. And I've worked all over the world. I go to Mexico every year for a month or so. I've been to Japan, Thailand, all sorts of places. You can just bring your computer and you can work there, which is a pretty amazing, wonderful life, which I have to tell you, I did not always have. I've had many jobs that I didn't like, that were not free jobs or enjoyable jobs at all. So the 3 secrets of best-selling authors. This webinar is going to share some big secrets with the intention of moving you closer to gaining a good income stream from books. And in this webinar, you're going to learn what many successful bestsellers have in common. So some useful patterns that can inform your book ideas and give you a greater chance of bestseller success. Why bestsellers are not about writing talent. And this is a big one because most fiction writers doubt our talent at one time or another. And if you write fiction, you're almost certainly a perfectly talented writer, but it doesn't matter actually, because there's something bigger than writing that makes a bestseller. And also why publishers don't always get it right, but you will. You're going to learn why so many published books fail, because publishers pick more failures than winners, but you can avoid some of these major pitfalls. So before we get started, make sure you're paying full attention. Put your phone on silent, which is probably quite a good prompt for me to check my phone actually. Good, it is on silent, excellent. Close all your other browser windows if they're distracting you. Sorry, need to catch up with my slides here. And you're about to receive some really valuable information. So let's get started. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about me. Now, before we leap into the 3 best-selling secrets, I'm just going to share a few fun facts about myself. So I'm an internationally best-selling author, and I've sold over 750,000 books worldwide, quite close to the million mark now, actually. I'm a bestseller in the US, the UK, and Germany. And I'm published by 2 of the big 5 publishers. That would be Hachette and HarperCollins. And my books consistently hit the bestseller charts, which is nice, lucky me. So how did I achieve this success? Did I advertise? Did I promote on Facebook or Instagram or on Twitter? Nope, none of these things. In the early days, my sales mainly came through word of mouth. So I'm just going to put a small caveat in here. These days, I do tend to advertise using the information I learned on Mark Dawson's advertising courses. But I do have an author Facebook profile and I do have a Twitter account, but believe me, I'm not on Twitter or Facebook every day shouting, buy my books, buy my books. I'm much more of a responder on social media. Readers come to me, not the other way around. So by word of mouth, we mean one person telling another person, I love this book, and then it just kind of spreads, you know, because when people really love a story in a book, you don't need to advertise. Sometimes, you know, it helps advertising, but you know, a really good story will sell itself. So readers love my books. Readers enjoy my books. Now, not all readers, definitely. My books are not for everyone, and we'll talk about that later. But a good enough amount of readers really connect and love what I write. And when they connect, readers tell their friends about my books and they encourage them to buy. And of course, readers know people who are similar to themselves, who have similar tastes a lot of the time. So it's a great way to sell books, really. I get fan emails pretty much every day asking when my next book's out, telling me, oh, you know, I loved your book. I can't wait to read the next one. And trust me, that didn't used to happen. And I receive a 4 to 4.5 star average these days with my Amazon reviews, which is the kind of ultimate social proof, really, for an author. So here's an Amazon a slide of my Amazon book page. And you can see I've written all sorts of different books, and you can't see it here, sadly. You should have picked a better page, really. Apologies. But if you look on Amazon, trust me, all these books, the reviews are over 4 stars. Mostly they're 4.5 average, except for the first book I wrote, which is called Glass Geishas. Let me talk about that now. And I should also point out, I tend to focus my market in the UK, so there's kind of more reviews there, but the reviews are still comparative in the US as well. So amazon.co.uk and amazon.com, books are popular on both. So things weren't always this way. If you were getting annoyed with me being too smug there, I promise you things were not always that way at all. Once upon a time, I had no readers and I was not a best-selling author. I didn't get good reviews at all. My manuscripts were rejected by agents and publishers. And I made no money from fiction writing. So let me tell you about my first published novel, Glass Geishas. So this is the only book of mine that doesn't get good reviews. It gets about a 3 average, which I think is fair. So after years of rejection, I got really lucky, or so I thought. My first novel hit the right desk at the right time. It hit the right editor's desk at the right time. And I was offered a publishing deal, which I was really happy about because I'd spent probably 3, maybe even 5 years writing this book. It was set in Japan. And I thought my future as a writer was now assured. I thought this was it. Once I've been published, this is it. Finally, I've done it. I can start my career as an author. So yeah, thought my future was in the bag. Unfortunately, it wasn't, because my first novel did not become a bestseller. It sold just over 10,000 copies, which is okay, but not great, and certainly not enough to make a living from. Just by the way, J.K. Rowling's book that she wrote under a different name, A Cuckoo's Calling, before she put her name on it, that book only sold about 10,000 copies. So not too bad. But anyway, there you go. Still not in bestseller territory. And the sales of this book, I believe, were largely down to my own online promotion. And the reason I think that is because the 10,000 copies largely sold in e-format, which was the medium I was promoting. And even worse, it got medium to bad reviews. And in fact, it's still on sale, repackaged and retitled as Night Girl, so you can see the reviews for yourself. Some people did enjoy it, but you know, most did not. So I discovered a harsh truth, which was that publication was not a golden pathway to bestseller land. And most published novels are in fact not bestsellers. I didn't even think about this before I'd been published. I thought once I was published, that's all fine. You know, that's it. That's the career. I didn't realize there was such a thing as sort of midlist authors or people that don't make enough money from books. And I also discovered that published authors earn on average around about $15,000 a year or less. So that's often authors working full time. And most authors have a full-time or part-time job alongside their writing. So while my first novel sort of fell into the abyss of failed books, another book at exactly the same time in the same bookshop where, well, the same bookshops where when I had my book launch, there was a book doing really, really well, and it was this book. It's called A Street Cat Named Bob. So this book was published at exactly the same time as my novel, and it went on to sell 1 million copies, pretty over 1 million copies, and it was made into a movie, I believe. Well, I haven't seen it. I haven't noticed it anyway, but anyway. So at one point I know it's supposed to be made into a movie. So the author was unknown, and to my knowledge, he didn't do any promotion. So why did this novel succeed and mine fail? I decided I really needed to find out, in my heartbreak and anguish of my first novel not doing well, I decided I need to find out, why do some books succeed and others fail? Surely there must be patterns and formulas, there must be reasons behind it. It can't just be random. And I discovered that yes, there really, really are. Bestsellers are more than just luck and timing. Now, creativity does have elements of luck and timing. There is truth in that. There are some things you can't predict or control. I think, you know, the culture changes, you know, that kind of thing. But there are many things that you can. So I've now studied thousands of bestsellers. I've read and read and read just basically, you know, every bestseller that you know, of the last, you know, 50 years, probably 100 years really. And I've discovered these secret patterns and formulas that I believe hold true to almost all, you can never say all, can you, but almost all of the bestsellers of this century and most of last century. And I'm going to share them with you now. So in a moment, you're going to discover what bestsellers have in common as opposed to mid-list books. What are the commonalities to best-selling books? Why bestsellers are not about writing talent. Now that's an interesting one. And why publishers don't always get it right. In fact, nobody always gets it right, but publishers don't always get it right, but you will, or stand a really, really good chance. But first, I'd like you to take part in a little visualization, which is what I used to do actually, and I still do sometimes, before my books became successful. So you've just woken up and the sun is shining. You pick up the phone, pick up your phone, and you have a little browse on your web browser, and you look at the Amazon bestsellers chart. Which book is at number 1 in the chart? Well, it's yours. You're looking and your book is right there at the number 1 spot. And you're doing a job you love and are free to work anywhere, which is even better, I would say, because this is not about ego. It's not about needing to be number 1. It's wanting to be successful with books that you've put time and effort into, and that's perfectly reasonable. And being a bestseller is a mark of that success. And may I say, as someone that does have, you know, the freedom to work anywhere, it feels great. So this vision can absolutely come true. When you know the secrets, writing a bestseller becomes maybe not easy, but certainly a lot easier. So there's no more rejection, or a lot less of it, depending on which route you take to publication. No more uncertainty. You'll know how to create successful books and how to repeat the pattern. So all those questions you've asked about, you know, should I, especially when you're in the middle of a book, should I continue with it? Is it going well? You'll have answers to those questions. It will be because you'll have had an answer right at the beginning of whether you're treading the right path. And you'll know how to create, you know, create success and repeat the pattern basically. So it's time to find thousands of readers and learn the secrets of bestsellers. Ready to get started? Okay, right, let's go. Nice little traffic light there. So secret number 1, what bestsellers have in common? Let's talk about that right now, starting with some visuals. So how many of these best-selling books did you love? We've got 50 Shades of Grey, The Da Vinci Code, Frankenstein, P.S. I Love You, and Gone Girl. Now, personally, I didn't love many of these books. I may have enjoyed some of them or liked some of them, but I can't honestly say that I loved them and have it on my bookshelf and go back to rereading it and have the hardback of any of them. But this is totally, totally okay, because a bestseller does not appeal to everyone. And in fact, most bestsellers are hated more than they're loved. Very often, if you look on a, you know, bestseller like 50 Shades of Grey, look at the reviews, you'll get absolute people, you know, so many people absolutely tearing it apart, and the equal amount of people who absolutely loved it. And so it's totally okay to write a book that some people can't stand, because the people who love your book will really, really love it. And we're going to be talking about that more, how you can find those people in a moment. But those people are going to tell their friends about the book. And then once the book is very visible, it becomes the next best thing and everyone else reads it. And because it's sort of out of the normal band of readers it was appealing to, people start, not appreciating it as much in some ways, but you'll be gaining more and more fans the whole time. So let me reveal the big secret here. Bestsellers target a pre-made audience. So that's secret number one. Bestsellers tend to strongly appeal to specific groups if they're done well and they connect with these groups. Let me give you some examples of bestsellers that have done this. So Eat, Pray, Love connected with childless women in their 30s. There's a whole newish demographic of women in their 30s who are deciding not to settle down. And because this book connected so completely with this group, it felt like it had been written just for them. They read in huge numbers and they shared and they made it visible to a wider audience. Next, we've got The Beach by Alex Garland. So this connected with young backpackers and the student gap year population. So by the way, I was traveling around Thailand when this book came out and everyone was reading it, and backpackers told their friends, and the book became very, very visible from that demographic. And then, when there was a sort of buzz about it, everyone else jumped in and bought it, even if they weren't a student or a backpacker. Girl on the Train, a really clever title for this book, and the framing, because this book connected with commuters. So anyone who commutes every day, they see a thriller with a train on the cover. The opening chapter starts with a heroine on the train and they feel a real connection. This could be me. This is what I'm doing, So bestsellers target a specific reader group, and this and often accidentally, actually, that's where the appearance of chaos comes in, because publishers pick books and they're not too sure why they're successful, and the author didn't purposely pick a pre-made audience, but it kind of happened by accident that they actually did. So this specific group can be genre readers. So what we're talking about there is that would be the publishing term for pre-made groups. So we're talking about thrillers, romance, sci-fi, and so on. That's a nice way to target pre-made reader groups. Or subgenres, so we can get a bit more specific here, and we can target groups such as Christian romance, space opera sci-fi, spy thrillers. Or just to broaden things, some other fan base. So for example, where Eat, Pray, Love targeted childless women in their 30s, or backpackers, we can target pre-made fan base. But what we can also do is we can target the readers of a really popular author. So the key here is to consider while you're writing your book, which group is going to connect with your writing? Who are your readers? Are they perhaps Twilight fans, which is what 50 Shades of Grey did? It started off as fan fiction for people who liked Twilight and wanted more of it. And so there was a pre-made fan base there. Are they maybe, so I should go back and say 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, just in case you're listening to an audio version of this. So 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James targeted Twilight fans. If you're not doing an audio version, it's fine. You can see the book cover. Okay, so you might also be targeting Stephen King did. He targeted blue-collar horror fans. So that's a sort of demographic, really. Or Lee Child, big thriller author. He's targeting sort of big boom thriller readers, really, and you can target them as well. So high-octane thrillers. So Lee Child fans are hungry for new material all year, not just when their favourite author is out. So you can target this huge fan base who are always looking for more material. Same with Stephen King, people that are looking for more books like Stephen King when he hasn't just written one. So really, a lot of bestseller success is about staying on target, which is not always easy as a creative person. Sometimes we move around a little bit. So we need to stay on target. We need to identify a group of readers, whether they're genre readers or a social demographic like childless women in their 30s. We need to write a book aimed at these readers and send them really clear messages that this book is for them. Now, there's lots more on this in the full course, but the key point is to know the group you're writing for and make sure that they know that the book is for them. Now, and you can, of course, approach this in whichever order you like. So, for example, if you've already got an idea for a book, you can then work forward and think, okay, so who would this idea appeal to? Or you can start with a reader base. You can start with, okay, I'm going to write, for horror fans who are looking. I know that there's, more Stephen King readers who want content, so I'm going to go for that kind of area. You can do things that way. So on to secret number 2. Bestsellers are not about writing talent. So when it comes to best-selling books, writing talent comes second to something else. So let me explain a little bit further. So we're led to believe that only the most talented authors achieve success. And if you're looking to create nonfiction and have someone write for you, you're looking for the most talented quote unquote author, someone who's won an award for something and so on and so forth. And we're sort of led to believe that writing success is about innate talent, i.e. you've either got it or you haven't. And if you haven't achieved success, well, you're not talented enough. But actually, that couldn't be further from the truth, because success is about so much bigger than the writing. There are many talented writers who experience rejection and poor book sales. Bestseller success is about something much, much, much bigger. Now, I'm just going to take an example here. Big apologies for using E.L. James and 50 Shades of Grey as an example. I hope she's not offended, but 50 Shades of Grey is well known for being slated by the writing community. Now, I have never slated it because I see a lot of talent in simplicity and a really, really good idea, good story idea. But literary critics really, really hated this book. The writing is widely regarded as inexperienced by people in literary circles. However, E.L. James, I'm sure, doesn't care because it is one of the best-selling books of all time. Now, if becoming a best-selling author was all about the weight and beauty and gravity of language, this wouldn't be possible. Now, I'm going to highlight something else that kind of debunks the myth about writing talent, really. Some authors only ever write one bestseller. So I just want to offer kind of a bit of not social proof, but further proof that writing talent is low down the list of bestseller requirements. So some authors, they only ever write one bestseller. They write many, many books, but only one ever hits the big time. All the rest stay in the mid-list. Now, if best-selling books are about writing talent, how can that be possible? Because surely a talented author is a talented author and they would hit the mark every time. Now, let's look at the opposite of the one-hit wonder phenomenon, the James Patterson phenomenon. I hate saying that word. I'm not going to try again. So let's talk about James Patterson, who's the opposite of a one-hit wonder. So James Patterson, he's had 147 bestsellers, and every single one of his books hits the bestseller charts all over the world. And even better for our proof, he uses ghostwriters for lots of the books. So it's not even his writing that we're buying. We can't possibly say that it's James Patterson's writing talent, even though he is talented, that sells his books, because for a lot of them, he doesn't even do the writing. So what makes a bestseller if it's not writing talent? What is more important than the writing? Well, let me tell you. It is a strong one-sentence premise, and this is secret number 2. A strong premise is more important than the writing. Much more important, much more important than how the book is written. James Patterson's books all have a simple, snappy premise. And there is something James Patterson, who worked in marketing before he became an author, knows very, very well. You can always share his premises in one sentence. And the premise is full of conflict and drama. And not only that, he adds to that a great title and cover that all tells the story. More of that in the full course. Is too much to go into here. But on just as a brief outline, the one sentence premise is one of the most important things for a bestseller. So let's take a look at a few best-selling examples to show you what a one sentence premise looks like. So first off, we've got Twilight, the mega best-selling vampire novel with a twist. And the premise here is an ordinary girl falls in love with a vampire, which is really simple, really unique, really easy to communicate, and full of conflict. Next up, we have The Hunger Games, a really original premise here. 12 teens fight to the death. There's so much potential for conflict here. It's really, really high stakes, and you can communicate it, the whole story, in that one sentence. And lastly, I'm sorry, we should have changed the title here. It's P.S. I Love You. We were going to have The Maze Runner, but I thought we had too much teen fiction. Teen fiction is really, really good at hooky premises. So I changed it to P.S. I Love You, just to have an adult example. So this was: a grieving girlfriend receives 10 letters from her deceased boyfriend. And by the way, it was a great premise, great one sentence premise idea. And by the way, Cecilia Ahern, she wrote this when she was really young. I think she was 21. She might have even been younger. And the writing, I think even she would say now, has, has a youthful quality to it, shall we say. But it was just such a fantastic premise. So let's talk about my big premise mistake, because I was never taught about premises, because most writers aren't. And in fact, most people who are trying to create books aren't taught about this. I didn't start my first novel with a strong premise. I made the mistake most new writers make. And I spent years writing the book, and I did meticulous research into historic Japan in the 70s and earlier. And, I got all that side of it right, but I didn't have a strong premise. My premise was weak and complicated and muddled and really confusing for readers. And I couldn't say my premise in a sentence. In fact, as a matter of fact, I thought about the one sentence premise after I'd written the book, because my publishers asked me to do a sort of, a kind of précis of it, a kind of book jacket copy for it. And I started writing it, and it was really hard to get it in one paragraph. And then I came up with this sentence that was kind of not a good premise, but it wasn't the book I'd written, so I couldn't use it. Anyway, and I wish I'd written that book. So if you've done this too, it's totally okay, because most of us do it. We're never taught to do things otherwise. So let's talk about building a strong premise, because this really is the key to best-selling fiction. And in the full course, we're going to talk in detail about creating premises. But for now, the key things about your premise are this: it must be simple. You must be able to say it in a sentence. And it must make people go, ooh, as in, I want to read this. What's this about? And you'll get that reaction. Trust me, if you do a good premise, people will go, yeah, I like that, and you want people to, want to engage and read the story. Okay, let's move on to secret number 3. Readers like what they know. So let's talk about this one. So what are these books about? So we have my first novel, Last Geishas, here. And we also have Come a Little Closer by mega best-selling indie author Rachel Abbott. So could you tell me what kind of story Last Geishas is from the title, tagline, which if you can't read it is Every Girl Has Her Price, and the image? Probably not. And as a matter of fact, the publishers had 2 completely different covers for this novel. They had one thriller cover and one kind of women's fiction cover for my novel. They went with the women's fiction, but it could just as easily have had the thriller, because the premise was so muddied. Rachel's book, on the other hand, really, really clear. You know exactly what you're getting. Spooky picture of a woman on a staircase. It's trapped in a life that isn't her own. We know it's going to be domestic suspense. So there you go, really nice and clear buyer messages. Rachel's books look a lot like these ones. So you can see they're all kind of part of a psychological, we've got 4 books here that are all part of a kind of psychological thriller, theme, as it were. So we've got Rachel's book, we've got The Lost Child, we've got one by the fantastic L.J. Ross, and one by J.D. Kirk, A Little of Bones. And you can see they all have this kind of spooky theme. So really clear buyer messages. And Rachel Abbott, by the way, worked in, she had her own business and she did some marketing. She has a marketing experience before she did books, which I think shows in how clearly she sends messages to readers. So here's my book again. My book was really hard for readers to categorize. They didn't know what they were getting. So it didn't look anything that was out there already, really. Not with a premise, which was Every Girl Has Her Price, which didn't really go with women's fiction. And it was all very confused. So readers like what they know and they understand. There's kind of two parts to that, but they like to know what they're getting for sure. And many readers also like more of the same. So they like more books like Twilight, more books like Harry Potter, and so on. Now, there's a bit of a problem with this because publishers tend to want originality. Publishing editors read thousands of manuscripts. And they, by the way, I would say one of the reasons why my first novel was published was because it was original, but that didn't mean the readers wanted it. So anyway, so publishing editors happy with originality, they get bored with the same ideas, and they love different and original manuscripts. So they loved my first novel, and I got a great big advance for it, but readers didn't know what they were getting. So they were uncertain and they passed. But readers want the same, or most readers like the same, and they like clear messages about what they're getting. Is this book a thriller, a romance? How is it like something that's gone before? So publishers want different, readers want the same, and this is a really big conflict if you're looking to be published traditionally, because publishers are often, not always, but they're often looking for fresh, original talent, something they've never seen before. And readers want more of what they know, and we should write for readers. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be both original and familiar, because you can, but having that familiar aspect, be it a genre or showing readers that this book is a bit like Stephen King, will help them to engage and feel confident in what they're buying and know that they're not going to be disappointed in the material. And of course, you have to match the story with the buy messages as well to make sure, you know, readers are getting what they want. So let's talk about reader demand on that basis. There's just to show you how hungry readers are for more of the same. There are still millions of Amazon searches still for books like 50 Shades of Grey, books like Harry Potter. There are so many searches that Amazon won't let you use those terms sometimes in your keywords or advertising because it just overwhelms the search results. So there we go. So, however, publishers often reject these types of manuscripts for being unoriginal. So a book lands on their desk like Harry Potter and they think, oh, you know, not this again. Everyone's trying to be Harry Potter. But readers, you know, they want more. So this is a big mistake on the behalf of publishers, really. Think how much traffic your book would get on Amazon if your book was genuinely like Harry Potter. Not the same, you're not copying, but it was in the same kind of family and you could advertise it as such. So readers are often loyal to one book type and genre. Even though publishers maybe get bored of seeing all these same manuscripts, readers just often want the same thing. And they're happy to have reworkings on the same theme. Just look at Barbara Cartland, her romance novels, you know, it's reworking of a similar kind of thing. And most readers obviously don't read as much as publishing editors. They might only read a few times a year on holiday, and they're happy to gravitate towards what they know, the thriller, you know, the high octane thriller or something, you know, that matches their demographic, and they're not fatigued by it. So feel free to stand on the shoulders of giants. We really can. We can be inspired by best-selling books and genres and use these to springboard our own success. So we want to celebrate best-selling authors. And by the way, every second, if anyone's sort of worried about, you know, imitating others, there isn't a book ever that hasn't been somewhat of a reworking. It's gone before. So Harry Potter was, the magical school in Harry Potter was quite similar to the Worst Witch books which came before. 50 Shades of Grey was quite similar to 9.5 Weeks. So we can, you know, that's what artists do. We use what's gone before to basically give us a roadmap. So we need to understand that these best-selling books give us a roadmap. Be inspired by what is already selling and great books that you've loved. And once you've built up a fan base, if you want to really knock it out of the park and do some complete new innovation, then go ahead and innovate because you'll have your own fan base. But it's easier getting started this way around. So let's summarize what we've learned so far and go over the 3 mega best-selling secrets. So secret number 1 is that bestsellers target a pre-made audience. Target your writing to a demographic group or a genre or the fan base of an existing mega best-selling author, and you will make your life a lot easier. Secret number 2, a strong premise is more important than writing. So spend a lot of time getting this right and do it before you start your story. And remember that readers like what they know. So feel free to be inspired to by other books that have gone before. So how can I learn to write a bestseller? Well, hopefully the secrets here have been useful, and I hope in some cases transform the way you approach writing. In a second, I'm just going to hop here. So I'm going back here. Sorry, we're talking about the full 28-day course here. So we've done a sort of snippet here with the secrets course, and now I'm just going to tell you about the full 28-day course to see if you're interested in the whole engineering behind best-selling books. This course is very fiction focused, so just note that its primary aim is to help fiction authors. So if you're writing non-fiction, you'll have to bend the information somewhat to fit what you're doing. But if you're a fiction author, I promise you, this course is an absolute game changer. So the full 28-day How to Write a Bestseller course is part of the Mark Dawson family of courses for authors who want to make a great living from writing. And I'm very, very proud to be part of this family. I've used loads of Mark Dawson's courses myself. I think they're excellent. So in the full course, you can learn how to create dynamic book premises that really hook and sell and get readers picking up your book straight away. How to actually identify and target those readers. You've been given an overview here, but the full course goes into the nuts and bolts of targeting reader groups in lots and lots and lots of detail. What readers want to read and why. And so much more information you won't find anywhere else. This is certainly not in a creative writing degree, which, by the way, I've taken along with a lot of other courses. And there's a real deficit, especially in the fiction market, of just nuts and bolts of how to create a profitable fiction book and to enjoy the process, to love what you do. So also included in the course, there are secret plot formulas behind the major bestsellers and some downloadable templates as well if you use Scrivener. Character archetypes you must include in your novel. So we've got a full module on characters. It's basically a walkthrough guide to creating a bestseller. And we'll also talk about how to get your book published, whether or not you want to self-publish or traditionally publish. The course covers both of those routes. And as an author who struggled for, decades really with publication, I can guide you through and cut your time and your rejection and show you the best ways to make that success happen for you. So I'm sorry, I don't want to speak about myself. The slide says Suzy has spent years taking creative writing degrees and courses, which I have. But before I say that, I just want to say that this course actually, on the sharing of the failed author mantle, which I've definitely worn before, I just want to say that this course does come from a real place of authenticity, from a real author who has struggled and failed and worked in jobs that I didn't like, but who is now earning an amazing living from writing. I'm really passionate about what I do every day. So I have spent years taking creative writing courses. I've read probably every how to write book under the sun, everything that came my way, everything I could get my hands on. And I've also studied thousands of bestsellers. So I've read all the successful books that I want to emulate. And it's taken a long time. I've condensed this knowledge into this 28-day course and completely dispensed with any information you don't need. I've read plenty of information that wasn't useful to me as a writer, and I promise you this course just cuts it right down. It's a 20-minute session each day. There's nothing that's going to weigh you down here. Everything is going to propel you forward. So I kind of like to think of this as the fast track route to bestseller success. You can learn in 28 sessions what took me around about 15 years. I'm still learning, of course, but the bulk of the failure happened during that time. You can take one 20-minute session each day, and you can learn anywhere, anytime. So within 28 days, you'll be equipped with the knowledge to write a bestseller, which is pretty exciting. And let me tell you, having taken a 2-year creative writing degree course and many other residential writing courses, etc., this course is a really, really good value investment in your career. You'll very easily earn the course price back many, many times over. So this course is going to help you do what you love for a living. It's going to help you work where you want, when you want, and travel and be free, which is probably the main reason I wanted to be a writer really was for that, aside from the sort of sharing fantastic stories with many readers. Aside from that, the freedom is a key element for me. And also you create books that make money for many years to come. So books I wrote 5 years ago are still making me, money every single month. And the more books you write, the more money you make. So let's think about your life a year from now. So we've got the coffee and croissant again. So just for a moment, imagine your life in the future. So we've got a lovely picture of a beach here. You could be working right here on a tropical beach, as I have. You could be working in the Swiss Alps at a ski resort, as my friend Simon Toyne frequently posts boasty pictures of him working at the ski resort. The office today he posts. Or a lovely coffee shop if you're not a fan of traveling. This is where I like to work most days. So this vision can really 100% come true. And honestly, for a long time, I thought it wouldn't. I thought it could. I tried to have faith, but after a certain amount of rejection, you start to lose faith. But it does come true, and it can. So no more rejection, or at least a lot less of it. No more uncertainty. You'll know what sells. You'll know how to write what sells. And it's time to get your books read by millions of readers, to really, really do this and commit to being a big, big author. So when you finish the full Best-Selling Secrets course, you'll have a best-selling book package, you'll know who your readers are, and you'll create a product ready for market. And you'll also be invited to an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded authors. And by the way, I will answer I do answer any questions in that group, so I can personally feedback on book premises and ideas if you like. So if you want to find out more and find out why more than 1,000 writers, and this is so exciting, 1,000 writers bought this course, 1,000 people bought this course in the first 3 weeks of its release. So the full price, and Cameron will tell me, I hope I'm getting these figures right for Teachable, but it's $297. It's definitely the full price, but for the Teachable Discover, it's only $197. Ooh, okay, that's a good, it's more of a discount than I thought, actually. So well done, anyone who gets this. So what
that is indeed the discount. It's quite generous. It
is. Thank you so much for saving me there. Yeah, I thought it was $75, so that's why I was looking at it thinking, oh, I hope that's right. Okay, so excellent, good. Well, we like to treat people well, right? So this is what students are saying about the course. I've been inundated with lovely emails and messages about this course. Life-changing, finally it all makes sense, best course I've ever taken. So writers are really seeing the benefits, which is fantastic, I have to say. For me, I love doing this. It's amazing to give people what I would have wanted, 10 years ago. So you can get this offer on, let's have a look, teachable.com/bestseller. So it's $197 you can get it for. And I'm guessing, and again, Karen, you can tell
there's also a button right above the video that they can click.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so I'm guessing I don't know how long it's available for, but I'm sure Cameron will say. So hang on a second. There we go. So now I'm going to open up the floor to questions, which I'm really excited to answer. And I'm also going to have a sip of water. So sorry about the slurping.
It's okay. I've been having my water bottle up this whole time, so I'm just gonna pause the screen sharing for just a sec. Yeah, let's do that. So we had some good questions in the chat. So some early questions on. So Shaw says, Suzy, what kind of pace have you developed? This is about. He says, hi Suzy, about how often do you actually release a new book?
But, that's a great question, because I think it is good to keep going, keep a pace going. I write about 3 books a year, 2 or 3 books a year, but remember I do this full time, it's properly full time. So before I did this as a full-time job, I think it took 2 or 3 years to write my first book. So yeah, I recommend as many books as possible, really, that you can do. And my books are quite short. They're about 60,000 words, something like that, if that's helpful. So about 3 books a year, I'd say, 2 or 3.
Great. And April had a question, which is like, when you really, whereas your publisher or a publicist involved in the promotion when you actually had your bestseller?
No, not at all, not in the slightest. And I probably should have made more of this in the course. It literally, I put it on sale as a self-published book because publishers didn't accept it. And I literally didn't look at it. And then I went back and looked, and it had 2 5-star reviews, and I was like, whoa, what's happening here? Next week I went back and it had 2 1-star reviews. And I was like, oh God, I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But I just left it, and I changed some of the book as well. That first book, as I was learning, how this all works really, and it just took off. It just completely took off, and it was selling, tens of thousands of copies every month, and I, earned like, I don't know, $250,000, and so in dollars it would be more like $500,000 at the time. And I did no advertising. I did no Facebook, no Twitter, no publicist, nothing. Just literally put it up on Amazon and sold it. And it's really, to me, it's a testament of, if you've got a strong story, it sells itself, And of course, advertising and everything else helps. And I do that now. But yeah, so no, I didn't.
All right. So we actually had some other questions in the chat. So we had one from Fair Torres. So Fair says, so he has a question. Is this applicable to, all types? So specifically he asks if this is applicable to thrillers. So if all this is consistent across all these different industries and genres.
Yeah, completely. I mean, the only thing I'd say, so everything we've spoken about tonight, I mean, I write thrillers as well. So I write thrillers and romance and romantic comedy. So yeah, it's completely applicable to thrillers, 100%. And the course also, the full course is also applicable very much to thrillers. There's a lot of focus on thrillers actually, because Mark Dawson writes thrillers, and we're kind of part of that family. So it's yeah, there's an interesting, we know a lot about Lee Child, let's put it that way.
That's great. So Anna had a question, which was about contacting publishers. So specifically, how do you go about contacting a publisher if you're interested in working with one?
So the best way would be you contact a literary agent. So in the UK, and I'm pretty sure the US too, there's a book called, what's it called? It's a great big yellow book. I don't have it anymore because I don't do that these days, and I'm going to talk about that in a sec. But I think it's called it's the Writers and Artists Yearbook. That's what it's called, the Writers and Artists Yearbook. And in there are lots of literary agents. And the idea is, and I'm not saying it's a good idea, but the idea is that you submit your manuscripts blind to the literary agents, and you jump yourself in with a great big pile of other manuscripts, and they look. And if you're really lucky and you hit things on the right day, then you might get accepted, and then they would try and sell the book to a publisher. So that's how it would work. And these days, publishers don't, I mean, none that I know of will take a submission if you just submit to them.
Okay. Now, sorry, just had something that blocked that on my screen for some reason. So we had another question here about the course specifically. So April says, is the course more self-paced, or do you have to study within like a certain time or dates? Like, is it cohort-based, or are you able to proceed at your own pace?
You can definitely proceed at your own pace. It's broken up into, I think it's 5 modules. And then each session is about 20 minutes long, and it's designed that way to fit around whatever you're doing right now. So if you did, and this happens to me all the time, by the way, April is the, you have a quiet spell and then you have a busy spell. And so you start something and then you're like, I can't do that. So you could start doing, you do 3 modules, you could wait a week, do 1 more, wait a week, do 10 more, it's really up to you. Or you could do them all in a day, like you could bunch them together and do it like that. So, and you can put them on your phone and stuff too.
That makes sense. And I think at this point, that's all the questions I'm seeing from the chat. So what I would like to know, Suzy, my question would be for you, if someone's on the fence about the course and they're deciding, is this right or is it not? Anything that you'd say to them for someone who's, is kind of considering taking the plunge?
Well, you can get a refund. I don't know if that's a very
well, that actually is a really good point.
yeah, you can try it and see, and if you don't like it, I think within 7 days you can you really don't think it's got value, you can give it back. We don't want anyone to be buying anything they're not comfortable with. But from my experience so far, and actually my experience so far of writers buying it is they've really loved it. And my own personal experience of Mark Dawson's course is, I'll be totally honest here, I hope Mark's not listening. When I first bought it, I did have that in my mind. I thought, if it's not useful, I might, because it was quite a lot, it was in the hundreds, back then, before I was, yeah. And then within the first few modules, I was like, this course is great. It's, there's no way I'm giving it. When you see the value in something, you tend to hold on to it. But you're very welcome to try and see.
All right. And we do have one last question coming in from Marissa, actually. And while we answer Marissa's question, I just like everyone in the chat, could you just type it in, just say thank you to Suzy for joining us and sharing some incredible knowledge. It's really been really fantastic. So if everyone could just thank Suzy in the chat. And meanwhile, Marissa says, so she's working on a family biography.
Oh, wow.
And Marissa asks, what's the best way to publish for this? Like through the publisher or self-publishing?
Family biography. That's a tricky one. I suppose it depends what you. Sorry, Marissa, to throw a question back, but it pretty depends what your aim is with it. So if it's a family biography, let's assume you've got a really interesting family, and there's going to be a real market of people that want to read about this kind of thing, and you want to sell it and make money with it, right? So, which is not always easy with a family biography, but I'm making those assumptions that that's what you want to do. I would say the best way for something like that is probably to self-publish it. And the reason for that is when you self-publish it, you can target much more who you're finding those readers. Publishers tend to want something that's very, in their heads, they want a mass market, and to them, mass market generally, I don't want to speak about all publishers, but generally, mass market means we want a book that appeals to most people. So if you've got something a bit more nichey, you know, there's some interesting specific material in your book that appeals to certain groups, it's probably better to self-publish, target those, and keep much more profit from the books and earn more from it.
All right, and it looks like we actually did have one last question that snuck in under the wire. Might have one we missed earlier. So Janet says, is there anything about good quality writing that could even put readers off? Or, you know, does that question make sense to you?
It makes sense to me. Okay, so Janet, I know what you're saying. Like, you know, do you want, you know, is being too wordy off-putting, or is being too weighty with the words off-putting? And what I would say is different types of writing appeal to different sorts of people. And as long as you're sending out the right messages, as long as your book is sending out the right messages, and I'm sorry to kind of keep talking about the course, but there is loads about this in the course, and I'll try and tell you as much as I can in a few seconds. But as long as, so let's say you've got a really literary language in your book, you know, if the cover has those sort of like pastely, dark, serious colors, and the title is quite, you know, poetic, readers will understand that's what they're getting, and they won't feel too annoyed. If you've got a real, you know, guns, high octane thriller cover, but the writing is much more poetic and it takes more time, readers are likely to feel annoyed with it. So by and large, I said there's a market for absolutely everything. It's just making sure you know, don't annoy people by sending out the wrong messages, if that makes sense.
And I think it does to me. And I think that's all from the chat. And again, Suzy, everyone said thank you in the chat. Everyone's saying thank you so much. Thank you, Suzy. I would read them all, but they would get kind of repetitive. But really, lots and lots of love here. So again, everyone, you have a limited time. I think until the last of the emails for this goes out, which is within a couple of days. I can't remember if it's like 48 hours or 72 hours. I should have checked the notes before this, but it's within a couple of days. You'll get an email as a reminder, but it's a limited time deal. So check it out, read a little bit more about it. The button above the page should be live, and that's a great way to buy it right now. So to everyone who's watched, thank you for joining, and take care, and I hope to see you all on the other side. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, and thanks so much, Karen. You've been awesome, so thank you.
All right. Okay, great.